Hey Sixers, today we are going to review Chapter 3, Section 1, the Worksheet. Get excited. Here we go. Question number 1. Remembering how the king and parliament used excessive power against them, what kind of government did many Americans favor? Based on what you learned last year and based on what we reviewed this year, this one should be pretty much a common sense question for you. All right, we know the king had absolute power, and the Americans did not like that. So, did we want a government with a very strong central government and a strong ruler, or do we want one where the power lied with the states and with the people? If you guess the latter, you are absolutely correct. Many Americans favored a republic in which the states had more power than the central government. All right, therefore, the power was closer to the people. Number 2, how many states wrote new constitutions and what states kept using their colonial charters? All right, this is a two-part question, and this is going to be something I will be looking at over the course of the entire year. All right, when there's two parts, I'm looking to make sure that you answered both parts of the question. I hate to even mention this, but PSSAs often have two parts to their questions, and I want you guys to be able to practice this. Yes, there is a method to my madness. So, let's answer the question. 11 of the 13 states wrote new constitutions. Rhode Island and Connecticut kept their colonial charters, but they removed mention of the British king. Next question. Did the new constitutions give more or less power to state governors and why? Well, think about question number 1. All right, what kind of government they want to have? They didn't want to have power lying in the hands of one person or a few people. They want it to be more in the hands of everybody. So, the new constitution give more or less power to state governors and why? Again, two-part question. The new constitution minimized the power of the state governors, all right? So it took away those powers. Again, they weren't happy with the British governors, all right? So they didn't want to have a governor telling them what to do. Colonists have been unhappy with the governors appointed by the British in the past. Next one. Describe the people that were allowed to vote in the new state constitutions. All right, again, you have to remember the time period that we're talking about here. The people that were most likely allowed to vote were white landowning males over the age of 21. Now in New Jersey until 1807, women were actually allowed to vote, and then that right was taken away from them. All right, but aside from that, women were not allowed to vote. African Americans were not allowed to vote. Native Americans were not allowed to vote. You had to be white. You had to be a landowner over the age of 21 in most cases. Ridiculous today, but that's how it was back then. What was the first state to include a Bill of Rights in its constitution? That would be the Commonwealth of Virginia. All right, Virginia was the first to do that, and eventually their Bill of Rights would be the basis for the United States Bill of Rights. Other states did add Bill of Rights. New York added a Bill of Rights, which gave freedom of religion. Massachusetts also had a Bill of Rights. However, they did keep their official state religion, but they said you could practice your religion as long as you did without interrupting basically other people. Under the Articles of Confederation, how many branches of government did Congress create and describe? Again, another two-part question. The answer to the first part is one branch. That's it. All right, so there was no executive branch, there was no judicial branch, wasn't a thing back then, just one branch of government, and they called it Congress. That's it. Number 7, how many votes did each state have, and how many states had to agree before a law could go into effect on most important matters? Each state had one vote. That's it. So if you had a huge population like New York or Pennsylvania or Virginia, or if you had a tiny population like Maryland or New Jersey or Delaware, you still had one vote. All right, so smaller states love this. This is great. They get just as much say as the large states. Larger states were like, wait, what? That doesn't make any sense to me. We have a lot more people. Why don't we have more say? All right, keep that in mind as we start to talk about the Constitution. 9 out of 13 states had to agree before a law went into effect. Question number 8. Under the Articles of Confederation, who held the most power, the central government or the states? Again, it was the state government. All right, we wanted to get away from that strong ruler. States held more power under the Articles. They did not want to give up too much power to the central government. List the powers Congress had under the Articles. This is almost laughable, especially in a month from now when we start to look at the powers of Congress. You're going to be like, whoa, they almost had no power under the Articles. All right, so here's what they did have. They could deal with foreign nations. They could deal with Native Americans outside the 13 states. They could make laws, declare war. They could coin or borrow money, and they could run the postal service. Yes. That's it, though. Describe how public land was divided under the Law Ordinance of 1785. All right, this is going to get a little complicated, so bear with me on this one. Surveyors divided public lands into townships. All right, so it would be 6 miles on each side. All right, so 6 times 6 is, that's right, 36. Good job. Within each township, there would be a grid, 1 mile on each side. There would be 36 sections, and each would be sold for no less than $1 an acre. Sounds like a great deal. One section would be set aside for schools. Now, I know that didn't sound very clear. Let's take a look at what that looks like. All right, so you have 6 miles on each side, so 6 miles going across, 6 miles going down. We said 6 times 6 is 36, so you have 36 sections here. Each one would sell for roughly $1, maybe a little bit more. And one section will be set aside for a school. Why? Because that brings us to the next question. What did Thomas Jefferson believe democracy depended upon? Education. You go, T-Jeff. All right, education is what he felt it depended upon. What did the Northwest Ordinance of 1787 do? The Northwest Ordinance determined how territory in the Northwest would be governed. It guaranteed basic rights for settlers and banned slavery there. Keep that in mind, all right, because the slave question is going to start to generate as we move forward in this class. Now, it also did something else, all right? It described and laid out the 3-step process for admitting new states. What did that look like? Well, when a territory was settled, Congress would appoint a governor, a secretary, and 3 judges. Once the territory had 5,000 free adult male settlers, it could elect a legislature. When the free population reached 60,000, the territory could ask to become a state. All right, so that was the process of becoming a state during this time. Last question. List the 5 states that were carved out of the Northwest Territory. 5 states that were carved out would include Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Michigan, and the great state of Wisconsin. They love their cheese there. All right, have a wonderful rest of your day. If you have any questions about the material we just went over, please feel free to email me. I will be very happy to go over it with you. Sometimes a word or two can make a huge difference. Talk to you later.